I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you're listening to Hard Knock Life.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard Knock Life. Comics, movies, and TV, yeah.
Welcome to Hard Knock Life. I'm Keith Chow.
I'm Britney Monet.
I'm Dominic Ma.
Happy August. Can you believe it's August?
Happy August.
Wild.
Folks, I'm drinking a funny drink today. I'm drinking a Welch's sparkling grape, caffeinated grape drink.
Okay.
It's the first time I've seen this thing. So if I act weird or turn into a mutant or something, that's why. I'm a big fan of the Welch's grape juice / drink, and it turned out there's an energy version. So we'll see how this goes. Bear with me.
Occasionally, you're drinking some sort of alcoholic beverage when you're on this podcast, so at least it's...
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, give me half a second and I'll spike this with something and it'll get even more interesting. But no, it's not the time of day for that yet.
It is, as we're recording, Spider-Man Day.
It's Spider-Man Day.
Yes, happy Spider-Man Day, y'all.
My favorite day of the year.
So as the one guy who's not that big of a Spider, I'll just take a step back and let you two talk about Spider-Man for like the next 20 minutes. How about that? That's my gift to you on Spider-Man Day.
Well, I wrote a piece on the blog about Jordan Biles and the Olympic gymnast team et al. And sorry, I conflated them. I combined them into one person, Jordan Childs, and also Simone Biles. Two different people on the gymnastics team. Jordan Childs is a big Spider-Man person. She, does her floor routine to the music from the Spider-Man films, and she wears Spider-Man inspired stuff, and she kind of tags Tom Holland in her Twitter account. So I was inspired to write this piece analogizing our favorite wall crawler with the gymnastics team, because in real life Olympic gymnasts are as close as we can get to someone who can move like Spider-Man. Let's just say no one really gets close, but they're the ones who look at Spider-Man's move and go, yeah, maybe I could do that.
And Jordan retweeted your post.
Yeah, she liked it. That was my social media achievement for the day. That was great. I'm glad she liked that post.
How are you celebrating Spider-Man Day, Brittany?
Well, I actually have to work later, so we'll see if I can squeeze in time to watch the Spider-Woman animated show, because that's my favorite Spider character. I know it's not Spider-Man, but, or who knows, maybe I'll throw on the Amazing Spider-Man, because Andrew Garfield for life.
Yeah, Spider-Man Day, I think, is all-inclusive of the Spider family. It doesn't have to be just Peter Parker, right?
It should be Spider everybody. Yeah, that Spider-Woman show is a funny one, right? It's kind of...
Yeah, it's so cheesy. It's not
it's kind of old.
It's very, a very loose adaptation-y of, I think her origin, too. And it's a really kind of more campy 70s show. It felt like they were we want to do we kind of want to do our own version of a Wonder Woman show, but we don't have anyone. Let's do Spider-Woman, because she does the whole, Wonder Woman turn that Linda Carter did. So it's very, it feels like they were let's do that, but animated with Spider-Woman and change some things around. That's kind of the, essential of the show. But it's a fun show to watch.
But definitely one of the hidden gems on Disney Plus, and that just to say, it's been a while, so we need a Spider-Woman update in animated space or live action or whatever it is.
You're a Spider-Woman. Is that the thing?
It's something like that. It's definitely a mashup of the Wonder Woman and Spider-Man aesthetics.
Yeah, you definitely, if you watch, even if you see little gifs of it, you'll see that it's very much inspired by those two particular. Because there was a Wonder Woman cartoon, too, as well, right? Or no?
Sure, there must have been at some point. I mean, but the live-action series was very popular.
she was part of the Super Friends. Yeah. I don't think there was a solo Wonder Woman cartoon.
No, okay. You're probably right.
Because she had her live-action show in the 70s.
That show was a big deal for my growing up.
I think Spider-Woman show was also in the 70s, so that's why I'm it feels very much like they were let's do what Linda Carter's doing, but Spider-Woman. But it's a fun show.
I wonder if Linda Carter should just sue Disney Plus, because that's what everyone's doing in Hollywood now.
Yeah, funny when those 9,000-year contracts reach their endpoint. But let's talk about that.
Well, first of all, let me just disclaimer: we love Disney. Please do not cease and desist us. We're always talking about you, Disney. Please don't.
I'm a huge Disney fan. And I, 100% believe that people should be compensated for their work, even if it's people who are making $1 billion or whatever off of a movie. I still think they should be compensated fairly for their work. But I'm just kind of on the fence of this because I'm just like, I don't...
you hate Scarlett Johansson, that's why.
Yeah, but not just that. I'm just thinking of, like, if her contract did not include revenue streams, then I don't know how you can sue for that.
Well, let's back up a second, and for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, let's just kind of give a little bit of background. If you were not paying attention to the nerd news this week, I think the big landmark earthquake that happened is Scarlett Johansson filed a law. It wasn't just rhetoric. She filed a lawsuit against the Walt Disney Company for breach of contract because by putting Black Widow on Disney Plus, they denied her, I guess, whatever revenue stream she would have generated for a completely theatrical opening. Part of that revenue that she's now not going to get because they're streaming the movie on Disney Plus has led to this whole lawsuit where she says, they breached the contract by putting it simultaneously on Disney Plus as well as in theaters. And that actually led to Emma Stone, as of this recording, contemplating doing the same for Cruella. So all the Asian American actresses are really upset with Disney right now.
Yeah,
that joke was old the day it came out, so I'm just recycling it here on the podcast.
Keeping the legacy jokes alive. I'm the part of this team that likes both Disney Plus and Scarlett Johansson, so I have conflicted loyalties.
And you're also very much in favor of putting everything on streaming.
I'm really in favor of putting everything on streaming, so that's why I'm especially conflicted about this. This is a classic pandemic paradox for me, and just in terms of my opinion about it. Okay, for one thing, yes, labor has always got to check management. Labor, in this case, being the actors, filmmakers, writers, management being producers, Marvel Plus. Labor has the right to sue for their rights against management, otherwise management will do whatever they need to crush an actor, whether it's a small-time actor or a big-time actor. That's just my classic progressive politics viewpoint of things. So it's good to sue Disney Plus if you think your contract is violated. On the complete other hand, why, Scarlett Johansson, do you have to jump on this only in theaters train, which is going to get even more people sick with COVID? When we absolutely, I'm so in favor of the flexible hybrid models that HBO Max is doing in theaters and streaming. I think that's a great idea. I think they make money both ways. I know they're smart enough to make money both ways. Don't tell me they can only figure this out by doing movies only in theaters. That's just the National Association of Theaters talking. I think they're the villain in this case, if there is one. I don't know. But so for an actor of her, prominence, yes, it's good to stand up for actors to get their due in contracts, but also it sort of sends the message that, oh God, we have to have only in theaters or else we've been, our intent has been violated somehow. Well, adjust, because we can't have only in theaters because the pandemic is still going on. Those are my conflicted feelings.
And I think the thing that kicked this all off is the fact that when Black Widow opened, Disney combined its theatrical box office with its Disney Plus Premier Access box office. Remember, we talked about it that weekend where it was like, it made $250 million worldwide if you count the revenue generated through Disney Plus Premier Access. Yeah. And I bet that kind of opened the floodgates because Scarlett's agent was like, wait, you made how much money through Disney Plus? Because that's not in our contract, so we don't get to see any of that $50 million. Because there's a reason streaming services never show receipts, right? They never tell you how much money they generate, because exactly. That's true. And for whatever reason, Disney was like, I don't know, they were trying to flex because Black Widow was the big MCU return to theaters, right? And they wanted to kind of inflate the worldwide total. So let's just throw in how much money we made through Premier Access. I think had they not done that, this wouldn't have bubbled up, right?
It wouldn't have at all because no one would have cared if they didn't know the numbers. But my only thing is that Scarlett in interviews was saying that she was on board for the both releases or the simultaneous releases. So I just don't know how much that's going to help her in her case, because it's you were on board with it. So I don't know, but yes, I do feel like she should get compensated. But it's very weird because I just don't know. I feel like when it's not in your contract, I don't know how you can fully sue for something that's not in your contract.
Well, I mean, it's possible that the whole idea wasn't even invented at the time the 9,000-year contract was drafted, right?
Yeah, she did her contract a long time ago, probably.
Right, she did her contract a long time ago. Streaming premieres were very distant idea at that point.
Yeah.
If at all. I mean she signed her contract probably 2010.
Before the pandemic, if we were like, we're going to premiere a Marvel movie on streaming, people would be like, get the fuck out of here. No way.
Yeah.
Never in a million years.
Was there even such a thing as streaming in 2010?
No, of course.
You know what I mean? Like, that was... Right. It's like direct to DVD. You're going to put my movie direct to DVD.
It sounds like direct to DVD to them. It has that connotation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing about this whole incident is that just how vitriolic it is, right? Like, it's one thing, to your point about, you know, maybe her agent was like, let's just figure out a way to get some access to that money that's being generated for Disney Plus that we're somehow not eligible for whatever reasons, because that's fucked up. On the other hand, it's like, you know, maybe they're just trying to negotiate in public, but it's like, if you saw the statements by her lawyers and the Disney lawyers, all I'm saying is going to make the Black Widow home release press tour really, really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think in a meta way it's fascinating. I think it's just a big troll to set up the next big narrative in the Marvel Universe, which is Black Widow versus the Marvel Universe. She's been spying this whole time, waiting for the window, and now she's like, okay, I'm going to take all you fuckers down. Or I'm going to try. Which would be a great movie, if not a great legal battle.
Is it time now to deep fake Mila Jovovich and all of the Black Widow appearances for the last 10 years? Can we do that now? Is that...
yes, we could do that to make you happy, Keith. I don't know if Mila Jovovich will be happy about that. That's definitely not in her contract.
Yeah, no, it's not. But I do hope going forward for all actors, and even including Scarlett Johansson herself, that this will be a part of actors' contracts, that if on the off chance that, you know, this movie is getting a simultaneous release onto a streaming service and in theaters, that I am entitled to money on both ends. Like, I hope that is something that happens going forward, just so that there isn't this issue. And I want to say, I'm pretty sure Kevin Feige, as though I very much want to work for him, and I love what he does, I do think he was just covering his butt and saying he did not know what was going on with Scarlett, and that he was embarrassed. Like, he is always gonna have his stuff covered and look great. So I'm pretty sure he knew.
He's Marvel Studios. Don't tell me Marvel Studios doesn't see a cut of that $50 million Disney Plus Premier Access money, right? Like, the whole thing. Oh, I didn't know. Come on, Kevin.
Yeah, like I don't know. And then him saying, you know, I think he kind of is making himself seem a little like, oh, I don't know, I'm just working on the Marvel movies. I don't know what's going on.
I'm just running the most powerful studio in Hollywood.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see.
But I wonder, like, how Warner Brothers structured their deals, because they're not even charging money for the movies that are premiering on HBO Max. You know, and especially the ones that are, like, simultaneously premiering, that are still making money in the theaters. Like, Space Jam 2 made $30 million in the theaters. Godzilla Kong made, like, a whole bunch of money in theaters while still being streamed. And they're not charging extra for the stream. So, like, I remember when they first announced it, I know they pissed off film Twitter, and I think they pissed off a couple of directors. Like, you know, Chris Nolan was like, I'm never working with Warner Brothers again.
Sure.
And Denis Villeneuve,
He's
for
on
a
team
minute,
only in
was
theaters.
like, you know, then I'm not releasing Dune, but now Dune is back on HBO Max. Like, so I'm sure there was some sort of, like, deal making that had to happen between the filmmakers.
It's an excellent question. I mean, I just wonder how they had their contracts around the whole 2 Justice League movies thing. I mean, I'm pretty sure they did not sign up to be in 2 separate Justice League movies. They might have signed up to be in 1 and 2 the sequel.
Well, that's why I think, you know, they threw a $75 million extra dollars at Zack Snyder to make the Snyder Cut, and I'm sure a lot of that went to Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot, and you know,
one hopes, because
Jason
he didn't
Momoa.
really need $75 million. He had it on his hard drive apparently. So just to shoot one extra scene with fucking Jared Leto. But yes, hopefully that's where it went to, you know, for lack of a better term, pay them off.
So yeah, it's real interesting, and I don't know what this portends for the future. To your point, it's kind of like, as someone who supports labor rights, I'm totally on the side of the actors who are fighting for proper compensation. On the other hand, like Dominic, it's a bad look in the middle of a pandemic because we're
It's a bad
still
look right now.
Yes,
in a pandemic that's
you're
getting
already
worse.
rich.
But on the other hand, someone has to do it. I mean, like Britney said, just so like you said, in the future, yes, all actors should have this as part of their contracts if they're lucky enough to get a contract. Because this is the future, and streaming is going to be part of the future, so it has to be negotiated in how we compensate labor. It also is funny because it calls back to, the grand experiment of the Marvel Universe with signing these ridiculous contracts, frankly, which basically hooked these actors to being these roles for umpteen movies, which as fans we appreciate, so again, it's a trade-off. Like, as fans we appreciate that because we get the consistency of, oh, that actor is going to be with us through 6 or 7 different movies. Well, I think that's fairly unprecedented in movie making history. That's part of Marvel Universe is such a grand experiment, and yes, it worked, but maybe just by it just barely worked, and now is the time when we will see its fruits come to roost, right?
Well, they've already said, Kevin has said that he's no longer going to be holding people to the long contracts like they have. He's going to want to hire actors who want to stay for as long as they want to while they're passionate about it. And then I think that's why we're probably going to see the idea of like multiverses and people from different, that's what they're going to do, I think, just to keep it, they might keep it going for a long while just so they don't have to tie actors down if they don't want to work on it, past a certain amount.
Yeah. I mean, and that makes sense. And the multiverse is an awful good device for that, thank gosh.
I think the one, like I said, the one thing that rocked the pop culture landscape this week, and it's leading to other actors considering the same thing with, I joked earlier, Emma Stone reconsidering her contract for Cruella. And I believe there was rumor about Emily Blunt taking on Paramount Plus for A Quiet Place 2 because Paramount, even though Quiet Place
she's also
was
doing Disney.
Right, but she didn't say, I don't think they were talking about Jungle Cruise because they were in the middle of like promoting Jungle Cruise.
Yeah.
It was like, with Quiet Place 2, that Paramount Plus has a strategy where it's theaters only for 30 days and then it will be released on Paramount Plus. So I wonder, if I think that what I had read was that she and John Krasinski were considering their options. I don't believe they've made any movement on that. So, speaking of Paramount Plus, I was telling Brittany, I know the two of you took the week off last week because I was too busy watching Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
In the theater. And
renting your own theater like a boss.
And that movie will be streaming in like less than a month because that's the way Paramount Plus is. And, to be honest, like, we're doing this giveaway of like Snake Eyes movie tickets. And I'm just worried that the people who are winning the tickets aren't going to be able to see it. Not because of the pandemic, because that movie's not going to be in theaters much longer.
Right.
Not for any pandemic reason, but just because no one fucking saw that movie last week and no one's
How are
seen
you
it this
doing
weekend.
Emotionally, Keith?
From
the great Snake Eyes unveiling.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing that it wasn't the cultural earthquake that I thought it was going to. No,
well,
I didn't think it was going to be.
Personally, like it. That's what I think matters most, is that you're such a huge Snake Eyes fan and you've like gunned so long to have an Asian American Snake Eyes. You got it. What did you personally enjoy this movie? Because I didn't listen to last week, so I don't know what happened.
How dare you, Brittany?
I'm sorry.
Well, I prefaced in our special Snake Eyes episode last week that we recorded at the theater. It didn't matter what my personal opinion about the movie was, or will be. I will always ride for this movie, which made some of the story decisions in the movie very difficult. Because I'm sitting there in the theater, and I won't spoil it for either of you, but there's some shit that goes down where I'm like, fuck. But I can't say I don't like this movie.
It's like you swore an oath.
I took a vow of silence about criticism about this movie. And, truth be told, like, one of the reasons I want to ride so hard for it is, like Brittany said, this is the movie I wanted for 40 years. At the same time, I want it to be successful because I want a sequel. I want some more G.I. Joe movies in this universe, whether or not that's going to happen, because I think it's safe to say it's a bomb at the box office. Like, it made $13 million last week. It made like $4 million this week. It's like barely crossing $20 million in 2 weeks, which is, even pandemic times, pretty shitty. And I think the movie cost $100 million to make, so it's going to be really really tough to come back to making a Snake Eyes 2.
It is a pandemic, so I just think it's stupid if they judge it in these terms in this year. I mean, I understand that they're going to judge it in those terms anyway,
but that's the thing. Even with this and Black Widow, like, how does the accounting work? Because these were technically 2020 movies. Mm-hmm. Like, aren't they written off already because they weren't released when they were supposed to? Like, in the books, like, these were filmed in 2019, supposed to be released in 2020. Like, releasing it now, whatever money it makes, it's not. I don't think they were ever going to recoup their costs because I don't know. Again, I don't know how Hollywood accounting works, but like, don't you just write off everything that was supposed to come out in 2020?
I mean, I think you're right. They do manage to cleverly write it off, but some funding source was on the hook for, what they thought was a hard release date, and so there's, that's the only impetus for why they have to release these in theaters at all. They do have targets of like how much money we're supposed to make and how much so-and-so is supposed to recoup, who will, a Steven Mnuchin-like figure is watching this shit very closely. But again, we as fans don't care about his problem because there's a pandemic and there's all these considerations going. And I'm kind of bummed I'm not going to go see Snake Eyes in the theater, but I mean, that's my personal preference against theaters at this point.
Yeah. Again, that's why the Paramount Plus model works in that the 45-day window for theatrical exclusive, it'll come out on home video. I wonder if like the release isn't just streaming a month after, but also releasing it like on home video. So just real quick, back to the Snake Eyes. I think one of the things that I was worried about is that the criticism of the film would be like, well, I told you an Asian Snake Eyes would. Fortunately, all of the criticism about the movie hasn't been, well, if they had just cast Scott Adkins as Snake Eyes, they would have avoided all of that shit.
It solved everything.
Right.
Yeah.
So at least, everyone acknowledges Henry Golding did his best. The story choices that the writers gave him were not the best. Andrew Koji steals the movie. He's the best part of the film. And Storm Shadow is done really well. Like, it's safe to say it's more of a Storm Shadow movie than it is a Snake Eyes movie. And then Storm Shadow is the one who has a fully realized emotional journey. So, that's cool.
I think it's because villains in general get that, like, even if the movie as itself is bad, I just think all villains get that.
Here's a minor spoiler I'll give you.
Okay.
He ain't the villain in this movie.
Interesting, okay.
Here's another spoiler I'll give you. Snake Eyes is the fucking villain in this movie. That's all I'll say.
Alright.
Interesting choice.
That's very interesting, because I could see it being like, the villain getting the emotional arc, because people always write villains really well, I feel like, for the most part, and then like you have the hero who's not as great, or they don't get the emotional arc because whatever, and the villain gets it, it's great, and then you have so it's kind of weird that it's reversed.
Well, there's a lot that's weird about this movie, but I still love it. I'll buy it as soon as it comes out on Blu-ray, and I have all the toys on pre-order, so it's got all my money. Do you happen
to know the story of, is a particular reason why John Chu didn't direct this one?
Well, I think they just wanted to go in a different direction.
Okay.
I was about to advocate on Twitter. I just rewatched G.I. Joe Retaliation. And let me be more transparent. I just rewatched the ninja battle on the cliff from G.I. Joe Retaliation.
Good ninja battle, that one.
Yeah, and it just made me think, like, damn, John needs to come back and do the Snake Eyes 2 sequel. Because that was an awesome sequence. It's dialogue less. It's just beautiful choreography. It's just beautiful cinematography. Fucking Jinx and Snake Eyes on the side of a mountain fighting the red ninjas. It's really good. John needs to come back and reteam with Henry, because I don't think they're making the Crazy Rich sequel anytime soon. So this will kill
Crazy Rich Snake Eyes.
Yeah, we could just kill two birds and make the Crazy Rich sequel Snake Eyes 2.
Well, yeah, I think there's still hope. I mean, remember this? Maybe it's like the Star Trek series Snake Eyes is. You know how in Star Trek the first one was kind of dodgy and the second was a classic?
Right.
Maybe that'll be Snake Eyes.
Well, so far the G.I. Joe franchise has worked out the odd... It's like
You're right.
The
just
odd
like Star Trek. The second one was pretty good.
Yes, that's right, because 2, 4, 6 are good. Yeah.
1 and 5 are considered most dodgy.
Yeah.
As the movies.
That's true.
And yeah, G.I. Joe...
2 is Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, 2's...
Yeah, you're right.
Like, probably the best one. G.I. Joe 1 was not that great. 2 had a lot of great stuff. And if we count Snake Eyes as 3, then... Yeah,
it's 3 or 1.
It's like the search for right.
Right? Like, it's either 1 or 3. Yeah, either way...
Look at us trying to apply math to
definitely watch it. when it comes out on Paramount Plus, and tell me we'll revisit it on the podcast. And then
he says with kind of sad dog eyes. I mean, I'm sorry, dude. I feel for you.
It's all right. Well, speaking of streaming, there's a big movie that's coming out on streaming this weekend.
Okay.
The Suicide Squad comes out on HBO Max this Friday.
Oh, yeah.
I had forgotten that you visited the set in Atlanta like 2 years ago at this point.
I did.
Because Laura emails me and says, wait, we had someone go to the set of Suicide Squad? And I said, we did? And I had to go back through my inbox and found the email thread between me, you, and a Warner Brothers executive about flying you out from the Bay to Atlanta to visit Corto Maltese, essentially.
Yeah.
I know you're going to post it on the blog this week, but can you give us a little sneak preview of what you saw when you visited the set of Suicide Squad?
Yeah, this was in 2019, which was, a whole world ago. All that is like lost in the mist, but it really happened, and thank you very much. I appreciate that, everyone at Warner Brothers for letting a bunch of us journalists go out and visit the set in Atlanta. The movie looks real cool. Again, speaking of movies where the first one was not that great. Mm-hmm. Suicide Squad, I don't know. We could talk about it all day. I think it's generally agreed it had a bunch of problems. Not that great a movie. And I'm a big fan of the Suicide Squad as the comics. Mm-hmm. So they're, this one they're not even calling it any kind of sequel. They're kind of a soft reboot. The main continuities, it still has Harley Quinn
and
Amanda Waller, and then two dudes, Rick Flag and Captain Boomerang, in it with the same actors. That's the main continuity and same concept. I don't know, what could I say. I mean, it was fascinating, and there, as a fan, you could tell there were a lot of Easter eggs going on that the director James Gunn was putting all there that were very familiar to us readers of the comics. What else would you like to know?
When you went in 2019, I think it was still a big secret that Starro was the main kind of like antagonist, right? But when you were on set, I think you allude to it in the write-up that there was like allusions to this like giant cosmic beast that they're fighting. But did you know at the time it was Starro, and you were just like under embargo or NDA to say anything about it, or?
Oh no, not at all. I was under an embargo, but I also literally didn't know what was going on a lot of the time. Let's just be fair. In fact, there were some characters that I thought were going to be certain characters, and it turns out they weren't those characters. I don't know if that was an intentional decoy by the PR people, or that they were rewritten in the last year or whatever. Anyway, yeah. So we got to visit actual set, an actual scene being shot just once in the afternoon, and it was kind of fascinating because it was on the soundstage was this big, gigantic, like rubble and debris set of clearly some giant building being destroyed by some like giant threat from above, like some big aerial threat. And so it was very interesting because if you know anything about the Suicide Squad, they're not like the Justice League in that they're like they fly up and fight the big giant monster guys. Yeah. They're like the dudes who are just on the ground with guns and they shoot other guys with guns, okay?
Yeah, they're a Black Ops team more than
they're a Black Ops team. They're not like cosmic, and they usually don't do giant monsters. So I thought it was, they didn't tell us what it was, but it was very obvious that they were facing some gigantic threat that was destroying like a whole island, not like taking them on one-on-one. And I thought is it an earthquake? I don't know what it is. Because we got to see Harley Quinn, struggle through some rubble that had clearly been bombed by something from above. And no, it was not until the trailer that I very happily saw that it was Starro, everyone's favorite giant psychic starfish. One of the more ridiculous characters in DC Comics. So, well done, Gunn. I'll just say that. I have a
question.
Yeah.
Did you get to meet Pete Davidson?
Did I get to meet Pete Davidson? No, he's one of the dudes I didn't get to meet.
Was he there? Were you in his presence?
I don't believe so. The people I got to meet were John Cena playing Peacemaker.
You can't see him.
Yeah. How did you see him? That's his wrestling. His wrestling catchphrase is "You can't see me."
Yeah. Well, that's funny because he's hard to miss. He takes up most of the room when he's in there. I mean, that dude's huge. And he's very funny and all these things. And we got to meet Danielle Melchior, who plays Ratcatcher 2. And the dude who plays Javelin, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure he gets killed early.
Flula Borg.
Yeah, and what's his name? David, I'm not going to remember his last name.
The one from Ant-Man and stuff?
Yes, he's in Ant-Man, and he's in Dark Knight, and he plays Polka Dot Man.
And so he's also been on The Flash.
Yeah. So he got to play many ridiculous characters in DC Universe, and he himself is an actual comics fan, so he's totally down with it. And he's like an interesting, weird kind of guy. And we didn't get to sit down with Idris Elba, of course. That would have been really cool, but he was off like shooting something, literally.
And Margot Robbie, I guess.
We got to meet Margot Robbie only in passing. She was dressed in her red battle-damaged dress, and she was very gracious. And it's always disarming to hear her speak in her natural Australian accent, because we're always hearing her in her Harley Quinn voice. So that was great. So that was a good time, and
And you met James Gunn, I'm assuming. Right?
And we met James Gunn. He cruised by and just said a few things about the production, which we all kind of gathered. He's coming from a very fan perspective of the original comics from DC by John Ostrander, Luke McDonnell, which were like big in the 80s.
What are the logistics of a set visit like that? Like, you mentioned like having, NDAs and embargoes and things like that, but like this was 2 years before the movie comes out. You're seeing shit that at that time I don't think anyone knew about. Like, I don't think people knew, who Idris Elba's character was yet. I don't think people knew like a lot of the details that have come out since that. It's like, oh yeah, of course. Flew LeBorg's playing Javelin. Of course, Nate Fillion's playing TDK, right? Like, those are the things that we're still kind of like, what's Dave Dastmalchian doing in this movie, right? Like,
right.
So what are the logistics of a set visit like that?
Oh, well, the logistics are like, we got nicely flown into the place, and it just takes one day, and they, in the morning they put you on a bus, and the bus goes out to, remind me, is it Pinewood Studios? The big film facility outside of Atlanta where they shoot most of the Marvel stuff, all kinds of genre films. It's a great place. It's a great drive out there. The countryside is beautiful there, and you feel like you're going to this little island of filmmaking. And of course you have to sign an NDA, and I think all the other journalists there are, we're sort of practiced at this, or I don't know, we're just good at keeping our mouths shut. We understand deals. We didn't get to take any pictures, so we got in the room that has all the preview stuff, props and concept art and stuff. We just take very copious notes of writing down, I see a picture of Harley shooting a gun in a room that looks like la 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 la.
Right.
So, and the PR people are very gracious and doing this good job of showing you cool things while keeping other things completely mysterious.
Right.
So we're mainly in a room that has all this stuff that has been cleared for us to display, and all these weird things like the detachable kid. Is that really going to be a guy? Okay. So there's enough like shock value just in that all these completely obscure DC villains that even DC Comics heads had never ever heard of before were like reveal. Like, if like now we get excited like, oh, it's revealed
Mongal is in this.
Right, exactly. No one cares that Mongal is in it. If it's not like learning that there's going to be a new version of like the Joker. It's like, oh, guess what? Polka Dot Man is going to be in this movie. Comics fans go, oh, okay. So great. Who's that? I'm supposed to know who that is.
I mean, I do feel like what James Gunn's doing with Suicide Squad is like, oh, remember how I made all these obscure characters in Guardians household names? I'm going to take even more obscure characters. Because everything I've read about the Suicide Squad is that Dastmalchian's character, Polka Dot Man, is probably like the breakaway character from the film.
I'm sure he steals the show. And Ratcatcher 2, I think, is going to be a big deal. I'm sure. No, I think that's exactly what he's trying to do. And I think, more power to him. It's an interesting take. Because there are lots of obscure characters, and, Rocket Raccoon and Groot are a big deal now, and they weren't that big before, so why not?
Brittany, do you have any anticipation for Suicide Squad? Because I know that you have some reservations about the director, and I don't know how much you liked the first one or not.
I liked parts of the first one, and I don't know, like, because I know David Ayer's really on, like, no, they really, like, destroyed the movie that I had. Right. So I don't know the parts that I liked were the parts that the studio cleared and manipulated, or if it was parts actually from David Ayer, because I don't remember if I've seen anything else he's done and liked. So that I don't know, but I will always say that Margot was obviously the standout from that movie. But I'm excited just because I really like all the cast for this new Suicide Squad. I'm sorry.
Especially Pete Davidson.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think it's because he's just really tall and just seems like he also listens to like emo music and cries like I do. So I just feel like, I think that's what it does it for me for him. So I'm really on board to like see what he's gonna do. And I actually do like David. I don't know how to say his last name. I think he's
Desmalchin, yes.
He's great. So I think it's gonna be fun. My mom has seen the commercial and she's like, it looks ridiculously stupid. I don't think it's gonna be good, but I feel like she's gonna end up liking it. But we'll see. We'll watch it on HBO Max. So we'll find out.
It'll be a good Friday night at home. Listen to all you streaming services out there. I'm sorry, this is the caffeinated grape juice kicking in, but we're all looking forward to the night at home on Friday. We're gonna watch this sort of fun punk rocky DC movie starring no characters that we know about, and also like Davidson's the guy he's playing is very obscure. I think his name is Blackguard. I have literally no idea where he comes from. Maybe he fought Superman like once. I have no idea who that is.
And I would just be prepared too, Brittany, because I know that part of the promotion for the movie is that like who lives, who dies, who tells their story is basically like the way they're promoting it, and don't get attached to anyone. I know they're hinting like even Harley Quinn, which I think is bullshit. Like they're not going to kill Harley, but I have a feeling like that first round of squad members were like Pete Davidson, Flula Borg, Mongal. Like I don't think they're along for the world, right? I feel like they're the first squad that goes in. Because you see, if you watch the trailer, and this is just me kind of speculating from piecing the trailers together, like you see Peacemaker, Bloodshot, and Polka Dot Man, King Shark, like they seem to always be together, but not with like the other ones that you see them like famously walking, that big hero shot in front of the American flag. So I feel like the Pete Davidson and Flula Borg characters, and even Nathan Fillion, maybe they get wiped out first. They're that first wave
Captain
of like
Hammer.
red shirts.
Right, Captain Hammer buys it. No, half of them get killed.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that like I know that. I just like you're right.
But that's what they're all saying. They're saying like
they
there's probably 3 people who are going to survive this movie.
And that's by design. There's like 13 of them at the beginning. They can't like all carry 13 supervillains to the end. It's going to be whittled down to like 3 of them.
And that's the point of the Suicide Squad too. Is like it wouldn't be the Suicide Squad if they didn't kill.
That is
like,
the
half
whole
the team.
point. That was one thing in the comics. There was always some obscure supervillain who was getting killed in the line of duty, and it was poignant. So maybe Pete Davidson has like a great death scene.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll bet money that he does.
He probably
like
does.
somewhere
It's
in the
okay.
movie.
I love him. I don't know if you guys have seen his movie that's on Hulu I think it's called Adolescence or something, where he's like clearly like he's playing his age and he's like friends with like a 13, 14-year-old kid because he used to date like the kid's sister. But for some reason he ended up being like best friends with the kid, and it's just like I'm like, oh my god, he's such a bad influence. It's a great movie. It's really fun. And the kid ends up getting like in trouble for something because basically he listened to Pete Davidson.
It's wild that like
Right
Pete
on.
Davidson and John Mulaney are like best friends, and they just seem so wildly
Opposite.
different as people. Anyway, but before we wrap up, I did want to touch on one more thing, and that's the copious amount of trailer footage that was released in the last, I guess, 2 weeks since I wasn't on with you guys since 2 weeks ago. That's why it's been 2 weeks. That's how time works, weirdly. Yeah, so there was a new Shang-Chi. I don't know if it was a trailer. It was more like a featurette. Or was there another trailer?
I think it was a trailer. It looks really good. A lot of people are freaking out because of how good the choreography looks. I'm like, Into the Badlands has better choreo.
Yeah.
But I think it's because most Marvel movies don't have basic choreography like that it's actually mind-blowing for people who aren't used to seeing like Marvel do that.
Are people impressed with the choreography?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
maybe
Yes.
it's just me.
There are.
I've already come out, on this
Skeptical.
podcast about my skepticism of Shang-Chi.
I think it has like actual choreography versus some of the other Marvel movies, minus probably
Sure.
like Winter Soldier. So a lot of people are like mind blown at how it looks, and I'm like, it's decent. I like it. I'm hyped for the movie because I love the character a lot. But I don't. It's like I said, Into the Badlands has amazing choreography. You want to talk about something, more recent with good choreography? But yeah,
Into the Badlands was
a true gem.
a standard setter, a true gem. I like that they have a fight on the long bendy bus. That's just my kink. I think
that's your Bay Area.
yeah, I think don't they
represent.
do they have those other places? I don't know, but like
I mean, that's clearly a movie bus, right? Or movie? Is that what it is? No, is it movie?
You mean Muni?
What's your Muni?
I mean, yeah, it's got the
movie is the movie's the like fast food restaurant in the Kevin Smith universe.
and also a streamer of independent films.
That's right. I think Dead Pigs was playing on that a couple
which we
weeks
should
ago.
all support, by the way. If we're moving to different models, we got to support the indie streamers too. But anyway, I was just going to say, because I always thought those long bendy buses were fascinating. I just think that's an interesting place to stage a fight. I think that's cool.
Although Shang-Chi, goes against your philosophy of streaming, and I doubt they'll move it to a streamer.
Yeah, I'm super mad about that.
Black Widow.
I'm super mad about that. I think there's going to be reckoning about that before, what is it now, just a month away?
Yep, almost exactly a month.
This only in theaters shit? No, it's not cool. It's really not cool, Marvel. You got to look at the data, and this only in theaters thing is not cool.
I think it's gonna get moved, frankly, just because of how bad cases are getting. It's gonna change. Cases are getting up too high. They're not going to put themselves in a situation again where they're just either gonna have to push it back or just, and they know now that people are going to buy movies on Disney Plus, especially when it comes to Marvel. So I definitely think that this is gonna get a simultaneous release. It's just won't be announced probably till closer because they're waiting it out to see what's going on with obviously the pandemic and cases.
Everyone's hoping for like a miracle of like, the curve going the other way, but all signs to the different. And again, okay, just to circle back, so for actors out there, if that happens as an emergency step, actors, chill. It's a special situation. Shang-Chi actors, in this case, we know you should get your due. You've worked really hard. Scarlett Johansson is going to lead the charge and see what happens, but actors chill because it's for the greater good that they would shift to a hybrid model. It's something larger than your contract.
It is, and I would say even when we aren't in a pandemic, like I've said, a lot of people have to realize how like going to the movies for some people is a difficult experience, and it's too expensive, and that for some people some people the $30 for Disney Plus is cheaper, and it's easier, especially for people who are disabled and don't like physically going to the theaters, and then people who need they do certain, for kid movies they only do it, it's special showings for people who have sensory issues. So like this is another avenue where people who like to watch movies can't because they can't see it in theaters. Like this is another thing, so I'm like, you have to think about what is going to help you. So I really do feel simultaneous releases is the way to go.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not, I know that I just came from seeing Snake Eyes in the movie theater, but to your point, we rented out the theater to see it. I don't know that, and this is no shade to everyone I saw the movie with. Jamie, Brandon, Will, all you guys, it's not you I'm saying, but I don't know that how much that necessarily added. If I watched Snake Eyes at home, it would have been fine too, right? Like I'm not, now that I've done it, it's kind of like, and then, Brittany, you've seen a few movies in the theater too. It's like, that was nice, but I was sitting in the lobby of the theater going, oh, there's a lot of people in this fucking movie theater.
See, both of the times that I went to the movies, they still had social distance seating at theaters. I don't know if they're still doing it now, because I've heard it changed, and I'm like, it's changed that quick. But if they're still doing social distance seating for theaters, then I don't mind going to the movies, especially for a movie like Shang-Chi and Eternals and Spider-Man. I will definitely go sit in a theater for those if I have to, but as long as it's a social distance seating, because that was fine for me, because it's just you and whoever you're with, and then there's a couple of like empty seats in between you until like it's the next party. So if they keep that up, I think I can deal with going to the movies. But
and the other thing that I know, this isn't the healthcare podcast, but I know there's a fear of the Delta variant, and cases are rising, cases are surging. Mm-hmm. But as far as I've read, this is still a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Like the 99.9% of the cases that are surging are folks who haven't been vaccinated yet.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And so I think rather than shut down businesses and everything, I think if we move to like a show proof of vaccination. Mm-hmm.
I know the Staples Center is doing that. I don't know if other places are, but I know Staples Center is moving to you need to have proof that you have actual proof that you took a COVID test and it was negative within the 72 hours of going to a concert there, or that you have a vaccination card. But places might go with, I know the Pantages is doing it 100%. You have to have your vaccination card with you and your ID when entering to go. So the Pantages is where you see like musicals and stuff in Hollywood. or one of the places. Yeah. So they are doing that, I know, starting when they open up, which I think is August 17th, which they're kicking it off in Hamilton, I think. yeah, so...
I just wanted to put that out there because I do think that I don't know how much, and I'm with you, Dominic. I'm all for like simultaneous streaming and theatrical releases, but I do think those types of events, like public events, concerts, musical theater, if you prove you're vaccinated, then you can go about your business. Because I think shutting everything down again, going back into isolation, because the folks who are spreading the Delta variant are just refusing to join the world of the vaccinated. I don't know that I'm a little kind of like upset about that, honestly. Like we shouldn't be in this place where everything's spiking as it is, right? Like, and I don't want to blame, I know that there are folks who are not vaccinated for legitimate reasons, for access reasons. I'm not talking about them. I mean, I think that we should find ways to help them get vaccinated. And those who are hesitant about vaccines, educate them and make sure that they know the risk and consequences of not being vaccinated, so on and so forth. That said, it's easy enough, I feel like, to like come up with some sort of system. The whole way we upended our infrastructure to make the vaccines easy to get for everyone a few months ago proves that when push comes to shove, the federal government can get shit done.
Yes.
Right? Like we can do nationalized medicine like that. You know what I'm saying? And then we can do the same thing with proving your vaccine record. All they gotta do is scan the microchip they injected in your arm. Right?
Yeah.
And then the 5G.
That's what 5G, it's for, so we could go see Shang-Chi, right?
Yeah, exactly. The 5G, just you can just do it through the cellular.
But wait, now you're switching metaphors. But no, you're right. There could be some hybrid model involving like showing your Vax card. Yeah, I'm not saying all or nothing. Yeah, we don't have to totally shut down all that shit. But let's show our Vax card at some places and we could still have public gatherings. I'm just saying, in general, let's not have the mindset that like, oh, we're done with the pandemic now.
Right. And you right, because I think that's the thing. The thing that's upsetting is for the last 4 or 5 months, everyone was on the honor system. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about this on the podcast. Like when you go out in public, 90% of the people who are wearing masks are the vaccinated ones, and the ones who are not wearing masks are the unvaccinated.
Yeah. I mean, there was some people, like a couple customers who got vaccinated just so they could like not have to wear masks. They were older, like white dudes, and they were like, "I got my Vax cards," and they were like, do you want to see ID? And so I believe those guys were really like, "I have ID and my Vax card. I'm like, I don't want to wear masks." Those people I believe because they were just like, we'll show you, because they really don't want to wear a mask. So that, it's fine if you really were someone who is unvaccinated and you were like, no, I don't want to wear a mask. Like, I'm not gonna, harp on you. But like, if you're not vaccinated, you should be, I don't know. I think a lot of things, people here in America are very selfish, and unless it affects them personally, they're not gonna care.
Yeah, people forget the whole point of wearing a mask, and we've used this metaphor in this podcast a million times in the last year. You wear the mask to protect others, not yourself, right?
Yes.
That's why even vaccinated people still wear masks in public, because even though we're vaccinated, we can still carry it and spread it to someone who's not vaccinated and get that person sick. So we wear the mask to be respectful of other people. I mean, I was like at a urinal in a grocery store wearing my mask, and some dude, and I'll let you guess his race, and was like, I thought we didn't have to wear masks anymore. And I was like, I'm fucking taking a piss. Why are you talking to me right now?
Wow. Oh, that's a mean one.
Oh my god.
So anyway, we kind of went off a tangent, didn't talk about the other two trailers I wanted to talk about, Ghostbusters Afterlife, and the one I thought Dominic would be all about, Dune, which is getting its simultaneous HBO Max release after all, because there was some question whether or not Villeneuve would be down for the HBO Max.
Well, you gotta adjust, adapt or die. Filmmakers, big movie filmmakers, that's all I gotta say. Looks like a great movie. Looking forward to it.
Any thoughts on Ghostbusters, guys?
I'm excited. Finn Wolfhard is one of like my adoptive but not actually adopted sons. So I'm, there to support my baby. He's growing up. I'm so proud of him. So yeah.
One thing I did want to touch on, and I know we're running towards the end of the pod here.
Stranger Things.
The whole Stranger Things of it.
Yeah, looks like it.
and I've read some criticism on film Twitter or whatnot about how like it's too reverential of the originals. Like they forgot that the original was a comedy, and the trailers for Afterlife. I think you even mentioned when we were watching it, Dominic, like, it does come from like a superhero-esque
because that epic
tone.
Music cue is just like, it's just, they're really pounding that theme home.
Right, there's no Ray Parker.
Yeah, there's no. Yeah, this is epic. Something big is happening.
But I'm excited for it. I think that like I think it's going to be less serious as the trailer makes it out to be. You know what I mean? I think for the trailer they want to give that sense of epicness, that sense of like reverence for the original.
Yeah.
But I think the movie itself will still be like the sarcastic, cynical Ghostbusters that we're used to.
Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, because Ghostbusters is kind of an outlier. It was all a special case, and I know I'm talking to the guy who likes Ghostbusters 2 a lot, and that makes you a special case, Keith. I think the majority will argue that the reason they haven't quite got Ghostbusters franchise is they couldn't quite recapture that weird balance of comedy and adventure and horror that they got sort of magically in the first one. It was really a weird cocktail that they
It was all three, right?
pulled off.
That's the debate on Twitter, right? Like there were people like, did people forget Ghostbusters was a comedy? And then there were folks who were arguing, no, Ghostbusters was a horror movie.
Right.
And there were folks saying, no, Ghostbusters was this action adventure film.
And you're all
and
right. There's no reason to argue.
Exactly. They're all like bitching at each other, and I'm like going, it was all three, guys.
Yeah, but that's why it's hard to replicate in the sequel. That's
Right.
what I'm saying. So no, someone's going to be not satisfied because like, oh wait, this is lacking the 3 different genres that made that first movie so special. Well, that's hard to do. It's hard to pull off a good comedy, horror, adventure movie. I mean, that's a bunch. I can't think of another one besides Ghostbusters.
One other argument I wanted to touch on is that some of the people I've seen criticizing Afterlife are upset with it being, again, too reverential to the original, and saying that they would wish someone would take the IP and do something different with it. And I was like, did you forget 2016? Did you forget we tried that? And then like it set off like the demon spawns of the internet. Like, did we forget about that whole period where like Ghostbusters the movie was this like flashpoint for, you know, identity politics on the internet? Did we forget about all of that?
I actually literally forgot about that movie until right now, but I kind of like that one.
I love that movie.
No, I love that movie too. I'm talking about the discourse of that movie.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how people forgot the discourse, because I remember people very much being mean to
Leslie Jones.
Leslie Jones, and just we were podcasting together at that time.
We might have, yeah. I mean, at least I think
not.
the DC one. I mean, because that movie presaged like Last Jedi discourse and like all discourse of pop culture being battlefront for, you know, conservative versus progressive ideology. Like that's where, like, I think it started with Ghostbusters, right? Ghostbusters was kind of like an offshoot of like Gamergate and Comicsgate and all that stuff, where people were like literally, you know, review bombing the way they did Captain Marvel, the way they did, like, now every movie that doesn't conform to like right wing misogynist perspectives. I think because right now, like, and this was, I'm going to get to my nerd popping, like the way people are reacting to Masters of the Universe on Netflix. It's this like, it doesn't conform to like what I as a Arrested Development child, you know, in my 40s think of when I think of these properties, and therefore you suck. That's what Ghostbusters 2016 did. And the only thing that I'm worried about or wary with this new movie, is as great as it looks, is that it'll rekindle that conversation. I don't need that in my life. So
I agree.
They tried to do something new. It was good.
Yeah. But with that, what's nerd popping, Brittany?
As y'all know, I have been back on my R.L. Stine kick because of the Netflix trilogy, Fear Street. All 3 of them are out if you haven't seen it, and I just finished rereading the Fear Street Saga, which is the actual book trilogy. I have the one where it's all 3 in one, where it actually goes over the history of how Fear Street became Fear Street and how the Fear curse happened, which is very different from the curse that they set up in the movie. So I'm kind of like, I loved the movies and I think they're really great, but I also I've always wanted an adaptation of that book when I read them in high school. So I'm just like, please, Netflix, listen to me and do both. Because I think they can continue the Fear Street movies that they established, because those were really, really great. And I also printed out the whole entire list of R.L. Stine's like Fear Street books, and I thought there was only like 50 of them, because I knew there was a lot. There's like 100 and like between 100 to 200, and I'm just like, great, I have a lot because I have the list. So I'm like,
take a big stack of paper to generate this. I mean, are you saying hundreds of them?
Yeah, it's like, so for the original, so the actual Fear Street books, there's like 55 of them. And those are just one-off stories about, like, you know, people who live in Shadyside or live near Fear Street where bad things kind of happen. Some of them have sequels or some of the characters cross over, but it's not, like, a huge, like, shared universe, I guess you could say. It's not as big of a shared universe as you think. And then he has the saga that I read, which is what goes back and tells you how Fear Street became cursed. And then there was a new Fear Street series, which was like, there's like another 50 of those. And then there's these little side-off ones where there's a series where it's about cheerleaders getting possessed and they're evil. And there's like all these different little Fear Street stories that I'm just like, there's so many.
I can't even fathom
so much...
being that prolific.
And yeah, the list like also includes his like Goosebumps stuff. So there's also like at least 100-something Goosebump books too. So this man has written over like at least 500 books.
Congratulations.
I hope he's the subject of the plot of Knives Out too. I mean, or an analog of him, because
they
just
should.
Rewatching Knives Out, I thought it was, if they need a different fictional literary figure to be the centerpiece of Knives Out too, would be based on a different genre. Anyway,
what's their problem with you, Dominic?
I was gonna say I really like the Marvel Voices series that's coming out in the comic books. I don't know if you've heard about these, but they did one for the Queer Pride Marvel Heroes. These are in the comics, mind you. They're doing one for the Asian characters, and I guess they announced that in a couple months they're going to do one for all the Latinx characters in the Marvel Universe called Comunidades or something like that. And it's just like, and I happen to like White Tiger a lot, so I'm just excited about any chance to see White Tiger, who is one of the prominent Latinx characters in the Marvel Universe. He's going to be a hard sell. He or she would be a hard sell to be in live action because the costume is basically like Black Panther's, very derivative of Black Panther's, basically a photo negative. He's got, white and green trim, and I realize that's a little bit weird, but one of my favorites Latinx characters in the Marvel Universe. So Marvel Voices is cool. Yeah. What's nerd popping with you, Keith?
I alluded to it just a second ago. Last Friday, Snake Eyes wasn't the only 80s reboot that I partook in. I also watched all 5 episodes of part 1 of Masters of the Universe Revelation on Netflix, which is Kevin Smith's kind of reboot / sequel to the original Filmation cartoons from the 80s. And it's fucking amazing. It was like I was planning just watching the first episode before I went off to see Snake Eyes, and I ended up binging all 5. And definitely like hit the nostalgia bone, but at the same time, what I thought was so brilliant about it is that it was just nostalgic enough to then subvert everything and kind of like recontextualize everything for the 21st century. And that's what's so brilliant about it. But that thing that's brilliant about it is what has pissed off an entire sliver. I'll say sliver because I don't want to make it sound like there's more than there are.
A loud sliver
of the fan base. And without spoilers, I'll just say that Tila, if you guys know anything about Master of the Universe, she's the main female character. She takes a prominent role in the show. She's the one whose quest we follow. And
is she the one voiced by Sarah Michelle Gellar?
Yes.
Okay.
Just like Rey, just like the Ghostbusters 2016 we were just talking, anytime you center women in a traditionally quote-unquote boys' toy franchise, the salamanders come out from under the rock to like bitch and moan on the internet. And people are less than happy about basically girls in their sandbox. Mm-hmm. And I feel bad for like the writers and Kevin Smith, especially because Kevin Smith has come up on YouTube and in Twitter and essentially apologizing. Like, sorry, I wish you guys liked the show as much as we do. Basically like taking the argument as if it's a good faith argument. And like the one thing I just wish they would just like ignore them and don't even acknowledge the assholes who you're never going to please unless you just carbon copy what they remember from their childhood and then just spoon feed it back to them. It's like we talk. This goes back to the Last Jedi discourse, and again any discourse of anything where people who are in their 40s and 50s are being catered to and then don't get everything that they want. And then they just loudly complain about it on the internet. Don't apologize to them. Don't feed the trolls. Don't apologize to the trolls either.
Can I just say it's kind of comical because Masters Universe, the main guy is literally named He-Man.
Yeah.
He's literally just a big alpha muscly dude. So it's kind of like bait, where it's like, oh, this is the only character you can identify with? He's actually named He-Man? Can't identify with any other character? Are you sure about that? Right. I think that just makes it comical.
Yeah, no, I mean it's but that's what's so amazing about like how good this, you know, and people who hold that old 80s show in reverence, like if you go back and watch that shit, it's not good.
No one cared at the time.
It's not good.
It's not
like
that good.
Yeah. So anyway,
action figures are cool.
The action figures are cool. Cartoon not so much. That's Hard Knock Life. Brittany, how can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hi Brittany Monet, and don't know when, I'll keep saying it, but at Naomi Podcast will be happening, and the Lituation Room stuff is also part of that. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Keep saying it. Will it into being. Oh, I'm Dama on Twitter or Instagram. DOMMAH.
You can follow me on Twitter at @TheRealChow, _real_Chow. Follow me on Instagram at RealKeithChow, and follow the podcast at The Nerds of Color on all platforms. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher. Leave us a rating and review. Go to hardknockmedia.com to find the other podcasts in the network, including Southern Fried Asian, which just got named to Oprah's best AAPI podcast. So like,
great,
we got the Oprah cosign. That's
great,
fucking crazy. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thenerdsofcolor. We are posting videos literally on a daily basis at this point. Shout out to Jamal and Laura and Mike and Sophie and all the cool people who are posting videos all the time. Support us on patreon.com/thenerdsofcolor and find us on GoFundMe and support us there. Email us thenerdsofcolor@gmail.com. And until next time,
please rethink only theaters. Just please rethink only theaters. That's all I got to say.
Bye, everybody.
Pop culture with a different perspective. Watch it on your screen, hit play, so check this. This is the Hard Knock Life, but not the chicken kind. More like the people.